How did you find out about Orsom?
Well, this is a funny story. I was out for a jog with Daisy, sitting by my side right now, and I was headed down. I'd heard about the Orson project in the news, and I was headed down to Lemon Street with her to see what the site looked like. Had never really been down there, and I passed this a group of people who were getting materials out of the back of a convertible, and it was Peter Brooks and Jennifer Goheen, and they were getting ready to go door to door in that neighborhood to let the neighbors know that the project was proposed for their community. And so I stopped, and they got to meet Daisy, and we talked. And I said, I would love to join you to go door to door, but I'm in my jogging attire and I've got my dog. And they said, well, same time, same place next week. So next Sunday, I was out there and I started going door to door with Jennifer Goheen, talking to people, handing out flyers and just informing them about what was going on. Well, I became involved. I love a good rally by the side of the road,
Yeah.
and um, and so I became involved in. Well, I always attended those protests. I also became involved in organizing them, and so I planned one of the protests for you know a particular location out by Kaiser, and we got the posting to Facebook. We got a posting to the website, and we sent emails to the entire email group. And of course, we had some. We all made signs. We had sign making parties, and people came out to the event. James Dunkelman had a train horn in a suitcase that was battery powered, and so intermittently he would blow that horn and it sounded like a train. So one of the points of the Orson project was if they're taking some product out of the site, we would have very long trains potentially coming out and blocking traffic throughout the city. So that was one of our concerns was people should understand that the trains, would be polluting and they'd be blocking traffic and they would affect our emergency vehicle response times. So as people were driving by, uh, you know, Mr. Gunkelman would be blasting the horn and they'd be looking for the train. And, we had people, Wendy would run out, hand them flyers. People were not afraid to stop and talk to us. And people were stopped at a red light. We could talk to them and they said, what's going on? So find out what's going on about the Orsom cement plant, what it would do to the city and how close it would be to a school, et cetera. So we got a lot of people were informed about it at that point. And we were getting people to fill out these postcards, et cetera. So yeah, the farmers market was one of the primary ways I contributed. So Budi Katati and I would show up, and she had a little tiny Prius, I think, where all of the stuff for the tent and the tables and the slag and the postcards, all that kit was in her Honda Prius. So I'd help her unload. We set up our booth, and people would come by. We get them to sign out, fill out postcards, and we would take the postcards, and we told them we would present them to the city council. Well, I talked to a lot of people, didn't know this was happening. A lot of people come by. It was really interesting. It was a really fun thing to do because I discovered that there's a lot of people who visit Vallejo who are not from California. I met people from France and people who are traveling from other parts of the country, but they'd stop by the booth and find out what was going on and wish us well. And a lot of people who are from Vallejo would come by, and they, some people who were in support of the project, but most people had no idea about the project. And once they found out about it, given our concerns, they shared those concerns and said they would get involved, and that that they also did not think this was an appropriate project for our community, given that we had a waterfront plan that included recreational uses that were incompatible with having a cement plant there. But those postcards were eventually all strung together and secreted into a city council meeting. And then at an appropriate time, everybody passed these ribbons of postcards down the rows, and we held them up while Paula was up at the podium doing her speech to city council.
Like, were there people that tried to persuade you guys that it was a good thing?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm actually really open to hearing what people thought.
Mhm.
And a lot of people felt that that jobs were important. And but we had an incredible group of people who had done the research, and we knew that the cement plant they were building was highly automated and could be run by 3 people. So once the construction was done, um, it wouldn't provide a lot of jobs. And you think about a lot of the jobs would be in trucking, and but these aren't going to be locals that are driving the trucks necessarily. So the people coming in from out of state who driving the truck. So we said that, and these probably are not the kind of jobs you want. And then um, I can't think of too many other arguments in favor of it.
Yeah.
We were able to debunk that it was a green cement project, which they said that it would use less CO2. But I think that turned out to be a greenwashing argument that you know um, that cement is not the greenest way to build, and bringing the slag overseas from China and then using it here. So whatever arguments they were putting out there were pretty pretty fragile and easy to topple with public information, so people could go out there and do their own research. But there are definitely people who just felt that jobs, that's all it was, and more jobs, any jobs, 3 jobs would be fine. And let's say that's wonderful. I'm glad that were able to talk to me, and then I would move on to somebody else, because my objective was to get as much information out there. And I enjoyed being at the farmers market. There was always music going on and lots of interesting people watching to be done. And I bop out and get my groceries. So it was a good time. We went door to door. People would come to the door and talk to us, and find out about the project. They didn't know about it. Some people were concerned because whenever there's a cement plant, there's inevitably dust. And there was one gentleman who said that he couldn't talk to us because he was in an emotional state. There had just been a shooting in his community. So there's definitely an element of, in some of the areas where we were going door to door, of course, it was the poorer part of town, South Vallejo. And when you think about your hierarchy of needs, you're worrying about making rent and paying for the food and keeping the lights on and the heat, and worrying about construction project, half a mile away. That's a luxury to somebody who's trying to, make their life work while working 3 jobs. And this one gentleman had a problem of grief. There had just been a death in the community from a shooting, and so in a sense, it was it was the rest of Vallejo's responsibility to look out for South Vallejo, make sure that they knew what was going on, but to take on the problem as a whole community. So one of the things that I did was I created a graphic that showed the Google satellite view of Vallejo and the distance between the elementary school and the cement plant would have been about half a mile, as the wind blows as it does. So these kids would have been getting the dust from the cement plant, and the giant ships that would be idling there because there's no shore to ship power.
Yeah.
So the ships have to run their diesel generators at all times.
Yeah.
And so the prevailing winds would be blowing diesel fumes to the elementary school and to that community and Vallejo in general. So yeah, no, this is just a terrible, diesel. That alone is reason enough to nix the project.
Did you think about moving if it had come in? If it had come in?
Well, yes. We ended up moving out of Vallejo anyway to be close to my husband's parents. But yeah, we were always, we always loved Vallejo for the people, for the community, for the activities, you know, for Moscati's coffees on Saturday mornings, for Obtainium Cup, for Mad Hatter's Parade. Vallejo's, and for the art community on Mare Island, for the history of Mare Island, for St. Peter's Chapel and the preserve. Vallejo is such a beautiful place with so much potential, and we actually love that. That's why we're going to continue to keep coming back to Vallejo to see our friends and to relive all those wonderful things. Um, we really believed in that waterfront development plan that we arrived and heard, okay, there's going to be mixed use condos with retail on the ground floor on these plots, along the Napa River, and it was going to be, really nice. And so 20 years later, that hadn't happened. So, but there's always the hope that the development would happen and that Vallejo would experience the renaissance that it deserves. But there's so many wonderful things in Vallejo that um, you know you have to make an either or decision. Either you're going to go industrial and make Vallejo a sacrifice zone and have the LNG plant and have the cement plant, or you're going to do what Napa did and make it a tourist destination with our wine industry and the breweries on Mare Island and St. Peter's Chapel out on Mare Island and all the things, gateway to Napa and um, the amusement park and all the attractions in town. So if they had built the cement plant, we would have felt that they were going in the direction of a sacrifice zone versus gateway to Napa. So that was something that we did think about and talk about. Well, of course, when you're fighting something arm in arm, you really bond.
Yeah,
And you're mingling. These protests become social gatherings. You're meeting people and admiring each other's signs and sidling up to them while you wave your sign at cars and you have conversations. And so yeah, you really bond because these are people who by definition have shared values.
Yeah.
The amazing thing was we discovered that Vallejo had epidemiologists, we had structural engineers, we had toxic substance experts, we had neurologists, we had educators, people who are involved with children's health. We had business analysts and organizers, project managers and organizers like me. We had artists. We had theatrical people. Just all different kinds of people came together, and they picked the wrong town. Their impressions of Vallejo were outdated, and they were thinking it was just a blue collar, uneducated town. They could just pull the wool over the eyes of the community.